Okay. Okay, well, call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, and I do want to make a couple of acknowledgements. Two members of council, this is their last meeting. One of them isn't in attendance tonight, Councillor Doug McDonnell, council member for 6 years, and Councillor Barry Lynch, council member for 9 years, who's put a lot of effort into this community, a lot of this is sometimes thankless job, and I want to acknowledge on behalf of council and the staff the long service of these two members of council for whom this will be the last meeting. I also want to acknowledge two members in the audience who have been elected to council. At least I saw them here. Where are they? Oh, they're there. Okay, we have Councillor-elect Craig Hodge and Councillor-elect Terry O'Neill, who also will be joining us, and they're going to be going through the thankless job over the next 3 years and discover just what it's like. And I want to acknowledge on behalf of council and staff the efforts that they put into their community for many years and their efforts that they put into the recent election campaign, and welcome them on board. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item in this evening's agenda is a presentation concerning the Inspiration Garden program. It's an update, and it's a presentation by our landscape manager, Mr. Mike Poor.
Good evening, Mayor Stewart and councillors. Thank you for having me. My name, as Jay said, is Mike Poor. I'm the landscape manager. With me this evening, I have my program leader for the Inspiration Garden, Julianne Agnew, and one of our key volunteers, Diane, over here. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing over the last year at the Inspiration Garden, where we think it's going, and some of the successes we've had. As you may well know, the Inspiration Garden is located on the southeast corner of Town Centre Park, right on Guildford and Pipeline Road, the corner there. The garden's made up of several smaller gardens. We've got a rose garden, small fruits, a kitchen garden, perennial garden. There's a Four Seasons garden where we're kind of demonstrating the garden's not just about the spring, but there's interest all year round. And we use each of these smaller gardens to demonstrate our programming, proper gardening techniques, and sort of as a laboratory for the programs that we offer at the garden. And then, of course, if people don't know where the garden is, quite often they'll know our iconic mascot, the eco-sculpture of the bee and the flower. So the garden itself is maintained by the gardening staff that are located at Town Centre Park. And then the programming is coordinated by a single auxiliary program leader, that's Julianne. And she's been excellent at recruiting and training volunteers who are passionate about sharing their knowledge and leading seminars, working with children, acting as gardening host, doing all kinds of, at times also thankless tasks within the garden. And then we bring in some expert volunteers from organizations outside of the city. A couple of the programs, and the first few I'll highlight, are focused on children. We learned a lot. In 2010 was our first full year of programming, and we used it as a bit of an experimental year, looking for where the community was looking for services. And among our best attended programs were children's programs. So the first three are geared towards children or families. The mentorship program was a pilot project this year. We had two classes, one from Walton and one from Scott Creek Elementary School. And we recruited volunteers who were passionate about sharing their knowledge and really instilling that excitement within the children. And then the children themselves would have the opportunity to mentor not just the other children within the mentorship program, but we wanted them to be taking that knowledge back to their schools and getting kids excited about gardening, about sustainable practices, and just really sharing that, being leaders within their own school. So the mentorship program focused on things like food security, composting, sustainability, as well as having a bit of a community engagement piece. And one of the gardens in the lower right-hand corner there, you'll see they're working with lettuce seedlings, and they planted a vegetable garden, which we harvested food from and donated to the Sheriff Food Bank this year. I'll get into that a little bit later on. We added a school program, and this was complementary programming to the school curriculum, where we were offering sessions ranging from just a garden tour where kids could come and learn about the garden, get familiar with some basic gardening topics such as composting, water-wise gardening, where food comes from, going all the way up to some basic plant science classes and horticulture classes, focus on sustainability. And as you can see, we were really well attended. In fact, we had more demand than we were really prepared for. We had to offer extra sessions with over 719 students attending. A lot of times the students also bring along their parents. So where we have over 700 students attending, we also end up with almost half again that number in parents. And then we did a focused week along with International Composting Awareness Week, which the kids really loved. We had lots of hands-on demonstrations where you could get your hands into the muck and the yuck, teaching about composting, worm composting, and just proper practice and how you have to give back to the earth if you want your garden to be successful. The quality of the programs were excellent. In fact, in the lower left-hand corner, Dan Mikule, he was so popular, in fact, one of the mothers recruited him to do a birthday party presentation because he was highly entertaining. On composting, yes. So it must be a sign of changing times. And then we have the core programs that we offer in the garden, which are offered to the community at large. 35 programs geared from families, children, adults, covering everything from why are raccoons and crows digging up my front yard, and European Schaefer, container gardening, 0 Mile diet, and in the bottom right-hand corner there, we've got some interested people looking at a mason bee tube. Pasquale, one of our volunteers, delivered some excellent programming on mason bees and other pollinating insects in the garden. As I mentioned, the mentorship program, one of the things they did was seed, along with the gardening staff, they seeded a vegetable garden. And this year we were quite successful in our production for our first-year garden. I'm very pleased to announce that we raised 613 pounds of food that were donated to the Share Food Bank program. And I had the opportunity to deliver some of that food myself to the program, and getting to actually hear the program participants saying that not only are they very appreciative of fresh produce, but the produce that we were delivering was among the most varied that they'd ever had, and it just really made their diet a lot more exciting. So that's something we're looking to tie into the mentorship program, where the kids have an opportunity to go to Share as well. And we were also written up in the Tri-Cities News. There's our volunteer staff collecting and harvesting. The team spent a lot of time harvesting food. That was something that was needed to be done every week. And then, as well as being a very popular space just for casual park users, we also hosted 2 events within the garden that were geared towards families. The first one in the summer was an outdoor screening of Dirt the movie, which is an impassioned story about how important dirt really is to us. And we had a fall wrap-up, a harvest festival, which was attended by over 100 people, mostly children or families with children, where we offered seminars on seed saving. We had a Korean food demonstration. Pasquale was there talking about mason bees, of course, and then the composting program. Solid engineering and solid waste were offering their composting program there. Just looking at our changes from 2010 to 2011, we offered nearly double the number of programs. Program participation went up by over 5 times, and the number of volunteers that we had working in the garden tripled this year. So some good numbers this year and good indications of where we're going. The garden itself, there's an operating budget of $78,000, and that covers the maintenance and the programming of the garden. $45,000 goes to recruiting volunteers, developing the programming, paying Julianne's staff, and then time, and then the $33,000 for the actual maintenance of the garden. We were fortunate enough to collect $1,500 in fees, which we used to offset the cost of some of the expert presenters that we brought in, and to cover the cost of some of the materials associated with those programs. So looking at 2012 and where do we think we're going? Well, I think that the children's programs were highly successful, and we're looking to continue to expand that. The mentorship program, we've had interest from several other teachers and school programs, so we're looking to grow that. And we'll be developing some interpretive signage so that the garden serves, even when it's passive and there's no one there to actually be a house, but people can actually come and educate themselves while they appreciate the garden. And then the other part of the garden where I see I have a lot of excitement for is as a cultural exchange. There's a lot of different cultural communities within Coquitlam, each of which has a really rich gardening heritage. And we see the garden as a place where they can exchange that knowledge and that passion. One of our more successful classes this past year was in East Meets West, where we had a presenter speaking about Eastern medicinal plants. It was very well attended. We've got a nice collection of Eastern medicinal plants now in the garden, and I think that's just sort of an indication of what could happen going forward. So that's a summary of what's happened at the garden in the past, and I hope you'll approve, and we look forward to offering more quality programming to the Coquitlam residents.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Reid has a question.
Thank you. Can you put the B back up, please?
Sure.
This was one of the first of these sculptures that we had in our city, the bee in the top corner. I think it's just marvelous. Of course, I love funny things. And now we've got a few more, not flowered, but I believe just greenery around the city. Do you have any room here to expand, like dirt? Do you have any?
There would, if you're looking for eco sculpture space, there's probably...
No, not just eco. I just wanted to bring that up because I happen to think it's really neat, and it's a really neat icon to have sort of in that little corner of our city. But for expanding your programs, I happen to think this is one of the successes, and from the children, the parents learn, and the grandparents learn all the things that we should be doing, and we spend so much money on advertising and newspapers and this and that, and this to me seems a much better use of our funds. So 2 questions. Do you have room to expand? And do you think one thing like one garden in a city is enough? If you do this in too many places, then it isn't successful, is it?
Well, I'm a gardener at heart, so just speaking from my heart alone, I'm sure that this is something that could be used in other places within the community. There is still room to develop the site that we have right now, although I do know that there's lots of interest in the space that we have there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, and thank you for the wonderful job you're doing. I really love this place. Thank you.
Yes, and all council joins in that. Thank you. Really appreciate your presentation, but appreciate the work that you folks are doing. Thank you. Mr. Kirk.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2. Item 2 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, November 7th. Recommendation is to approve.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 is the minutes of the Land Use and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting of Monday, November 14th. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
First item of business arising out of that committee's meeting pertains to the preliminary report and application for zoning amendment bylaw 4267, and this is at 955 Madore Avenue. The recommendation from the standing committee is that council give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw 4267 and refer this bylaw to public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Reid.
No, I guess I just wasn't turned off.
No trouble. Okay. Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3.3 is zoning amendment bylaw 4272. This is to rezone the property 1175 Pinetree Way to accommodate a future mixed-use high-density development. Recommendations give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw 4272 and refer this bylaw to public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Sikora, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3.4 is a conservation permit application for 1430 Pipeline Road. The recommendation is that council refer this application back to staff in order that the owner address deficiencies and complete the technical requirements outlined in the Golder Associates report, and that the owner of the property be advised that the sole point of contact at the city regarding this file is the manager of development services.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3.5 is a temporary use permit application to allow the sale of motor vehicles under 4,500 kilograms at 2954 Pheasant Street. The recommendation from the Standing Committee is that Council authorize the issuance of this temporary use permit for a minimum period of 3 years in order to allow the sale of such vehicles.
Moved by Councillor Sikora, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
And item 3.6 is also a temporary use permit application. This is to permit the storage of new motor vehicles by a third party at 2968 Christmas Way and 2965 Pheasant Street. Recommendation from the Standing Committee is that Council authorize the issuance of this TUP for a minimum period of 3 years in order to allow the storage of new motor vehicles.
Moved by Councillor Sikora, second by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Nicholson has a question.
Yeah, I noticed minimum period of 3 years. Do we have an idea of how long this would continue? Perhaps beyond that?
I mean, he's not allowed to store them for less than 3 years.
Well, it would appear that way.
Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The 3-year term, that springs from the Local Government Act. When the province went in and did the updated amendments around temporary use permits, they set a 3-year, and up to 1 3-year extension can be considered. So it could be a maximum of 6 years. I don't think we're held to be exactly 3 years. What can be determined between the applicant and the city, but in this case they've applied for 3 years, which is what they're eligible for under the Local Government Act. And as I said, there could be the potential for the 3-year extension at Council's approval.
So at this point in the application, it's effectively both a minimum and a maximum. Thank you.
There you go. Any other questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is the minutes of the Recreation, Sports and Culture Standing Committee meeting of Monday, November 14th. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is the minutes of the Engineering, Utilities and Environment Standing Committee meeting of Monday, November 14th. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 6 is a report of staff. This pertains to bylaw review and business improvements and outdated rules. The two-part recommendations that Council give first, second, and third readings to see if Coquitlam Bylaw Consolidation Bylaw number 4241, and that Council give first, second, and third readings to see if Coquitlam Bylaw Repeal Bylaw number 4242.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Robinson. Councillor Robinson.
I just have a question. So if our horses and livestock can't use city sidewalks, where do they go? It's a joke. But anyway, I just...
I don't see any staff members jumping up to answer that. That's a John Dumont answer.
Thank you. I got the joke. I believe that bylaw's from 1912, if I remember correctly.
I like the bylaw. Are you done? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say I'm glad to see this come, and I'm particularly glad to see that the report includes some measures toward some 60 year from now council not finding themselves in a similar position.
Well, this has indeed been a long time coming, and Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. Well, I like the one about the poll tax on men.
We want to keep that one.
I got quite a kick out of reading these. And so my question is this, and it has to do with our new website, which will be up and running in January. I'm trusting from what I'm reading in here and knowing that we're updating our website that locating bylaws will be much easier and centralized in one spot. Is that correct?
That is correct. If I could just through the chair, basically this initiative will accomplish 3 things. It will update our bylaw catalog to make it current and accurate. It put forward a number of outdated bylaws for repeal so we can get them out of the system. And third, and I think most importantly, it allows staff the authority to consolidate bylaws, so our development procedures bylaw, noise bylaw, ones like that that are of interest to the public, and then we can put these consolidated documents where all the information on a particular topic is in one document on our website, and the public is then able to just go on and access the bylaw in its full form in one document. So yes, that's a bit of a long answer, but we'll be updating the information and making it available on our new website.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate this. Thanks.
Thank you. Some of these items have been around for a long time. The next speaker wants to point out that not everything that's been around for a long time is outdated. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The one bylaw that you'll come across that's about 100 years old is a bylaw that if you go to the liquor store, buy a bottle of liquor, and you step into the grocery store to buy some ice and some mixer, your liquor can be confiscated. So we come across that bylaw, it's there somewhere, okay? Now, I think it's a municipal bylaw, but it also could be part of a provincial bylaw. But it's about 100 years old.
Were you mayor when that was put in place?
Not quite. Not yet.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Reid.
Well, there was one also, and I'm looking across to those who look through them, about a house of ill repute in the Maillardville area.
Okay.
That also was 100 years old. And what happened to it? Is it still there?
The bylaw or the house?
The bylaw. I think the house is gone. Let's hope not.
The house has been ripped down.
I mean,
the inside knowledge.
Oh, you're very, well, it came to us, I can't remember why, but one day we all just couldn't believe it. I mean, so I guess it's been taken out before this, because it looks like you've got all the silly ones out.
Through the chair, I believe that one must have been removed because it's not in our current list. I would have remembered that one.
Oh, it was a dilly the way it was written. And I like the one that a license can't be issued to females in licensed establishments. That was really good too. Thank you. I know it was.
Now, do any of the staff recognize the House of Ill Repute? No? No.
The bylaw's been removed.
That bylaw's been removed.
1983.
Ah. He's guessing. Okay, we're getting silly. Any further comments? Seeing none, we're about to get rid of a bunch of outdated stuff. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Get rid of 40 bylaws, add a new bylaw. Fourth and final reading of the Maillardville Commercial Property Improvement Revitalization Tax Exemption Bylaw 4228. Recognitions give fourth and final reading to the Maillardville Commercial Property Improvement Revitalization Tax Exemption Bylaw 4228.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Nicholson, possibly the longest bylaw name we have. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the last formal item on the agenda.
There's a motion to adjourn. There's a motion to adjourn by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Robinson. But before we do that, I see Councillor Reid has something, and I just wanted to quickly point out, staff threw this on my desk as I came up here. Light the hall.
Yes. Oh, you're going to do it.
Oh, you want to do it? There we go. Okay. Sorry, it got thrown on my desk, and Bob's and Lolo are here from 3:30 with a lighting ceremony at 5 o'clock on the 26th of November. Some free whimsical fun for the whole family from 3 till 7, rain or shine, at Coquitlam City Hall as we light the Christmas spirit here at City Hall and yes, in the precinct. Look forward to that on the 26th of November from 3 till 7. Our inaugural council meeting of the new council will be on the 5th of November. And December. Why don't you do it, Mr. Clerk?
I think it's all been said.
Okay. 5th of December. The motion was to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.